everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Mystical Munchies, featuring the dessert out of the Magic the Gathering Cuisines of the Multiverse cookbook. Today we're going to be making the dessert, Life of the Party. I looked at the Heart and Soul Babka, which I originally had scheduled for this week, and that recipe just ended up scaring the living daylights out of me, so we're going to go to this recipe instead. The Jumpstart Energy Bowls were okay last week. I definitely didn't like how the tea yogurt turned out at all. I was actually pretty happy with how the granola itself turned out. If I could find some kind of different sauce to put on there, maybe that would work a little better. But let's go into this recipe. So first up, let's tell the story. The Aetherborn are beings created from the Aether. They have short lifespans, so they try to live their lives to the fullest, never wasting a second. Chandra counts Yahenni as one of her greatest teachers. They fought together to free Kaladesh from the Iron Fist of the Consulate. Yahenni was a joyful being and the life of any party. They were focused on existence, the here and now, and Chandra admired that. Sometimes, when darkness clouds her mind, Chandra seeks out the syrup-soaked fried dough balls served at Yahenni's final party. When she's done, she licks her fingers and hums Yahenni's favorite song. Then she thanks the multiverse for all it has given and taken away. Well, let's find out if these dough balls are going to live up to their reputation. The ingredients are waiting for us at the table, so let's move in that direction. It's not exactly coming through in the setup, but I am trying to go for a rough split here. So in order to make the syrup, which is the first part of the recipe, we need a cup of water, 1.5 cups of sugar, 2 green cardamom pods crushed. Instead, I'm using half a teaspoon of ground cardamom, 2 pinches of saffron, but I'm subbing in paprika for that, and 2 lemon peels. In order to make the dough itself, we need 1.5 cups of milk powder. I'm using non-fat dry milk for that, 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, another teaspoon each of sugar and baking powder, another 1/4 teaspoon of ground cardamom, a pinch of salt, which is hidden back here behind the milk. Let me actually move that out of the way. So there's the salt. 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter at room temperature, that's going to have some time to come up while we work on the first part of the recipe. 7 to 9 tablespoons of milk and peanut oil for frying. Now let's move into the kitchen and start putting this recipe together. We're going to start in a saucepan, and we're going to be setting this over medium-high heat when we're done. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to combine the water, which I've got right here, the sugar. We need 1.5 cups of the sugar. I've got my 3/4 of a cup here. That's a little bit heaping, but it'll work. Okay. That needs to go back over because I need that as well for the powdered milk. Actually, both things need to go back over. And the cardamom. Again, I'm using about 1/2 teaspoon of ground cardamom instead of the cardamom pods, because I figure it's easier to get a hold of ground cardamom than it is to get a hold of cardamom pods. The 1/2 teaspoon can go into the dishes. The cardamom needs to go back over to the table. So now we're going to set this over medium-high heat. I'm going to go at about an 8 on this one. Actually, the milk can go back in the fridge until I'm ready for that. And what we want to do now is we want to whisk this until the sugar has dissolved and it reaches a boil. So yes, it's going to involve a lot of contact of metal on what was supposed to be non-stick pans, but they're very much not non-stick anymore. Alright, so I'm also trying to figure out how much syrup that's going to make so I get the right size container out once it eventually starts to boil. Or once it, well, I'm just looking ahead to some of these other recipes. Or some of the other steps in the recipe. I'm also going to keep working the whisk because I want to make sure this sugar. I want to make sure the sugar dissolves quickly. I'll get out some other stuff I know full well I'm going to need. We are. And similar to the, I know I've had trouble with boiling before, so I think similar to the no-bake cookies when I had trouble with those boiling, I'm going to let it come to a rolling boil before I drop the heat and start the timer, because that's the next step that's going to be coming. So once we get this to a boil, and we're gonna watch it come to a boil in real time, because I figure that's too important a step in the recipe. So once we get to a rolling boil, then the next step is going to be reduce the heat and simmer for 10 minutes. I'm not going to bore you guys with this 10-minute simmer, but we are going to watch this come to a boil in real time, which it's already starting to. But again, I'm not going to put you guys over top of the stove. I'm not going to put you guys over top of the stove, because I mean it's not on the danger scale of hot oil, but I'd rather not take a chance if I can avoid it. All right, looks like it's starting to come near a boil here. I also have to make sure that the airtight container I'm eventually going to transfer this to is going to survive the heat. So it looks like it's coming up to a boil now. Actually, I grabbed decently warm water out of the sink, so it looks like we're coming to a boil pretty quickly. I'm going to let the last little bit come to a boil in here. All right. It's got a weird smell to it, but hopefully it'll all be fine when we get to the taste test. So now that it's at a rolling boil, now I'm going to bring the heat. It doesn't say how far to bring it down. We just want to get to a simmer, so I'm going to bring the heat down to, we'll start with it at about a 3, and then I'm going to start a 10-minute timer to let it simmer. So we'll come back to this in about 10 minutes after it's had time to simmer. You guys may be able to pick up a little bit of background noise. I've got a print project going on for my game tomorrow afternoon, but we're going to keep soldiering on here. So as you can see, the syrup has come off the heat after the 10 minutes that was simmering. So it's off the heat. So now we're going to add the saffron, but once again, I'm substituting in paprika for saffron. We'll grab a couple pinches of paprika. Okay. and our 2 lemon peels. Ooh. Trying to get them in without splashing everywhere. So we'll let that stir up. We'll give that a quick stir. I'm presuming the lemon peels are in here for flavor. I'm a little bit annoyed that it doesn't say to dispose of the lemon peels at any point. But we're going to move that over to an airtight container, which hopefully this will survive that. Hopefully this will survive. So, and not melt on me. So we'll put this all in. Presumably with the lemon peels in here, since it didn't say to discard them yet. We'll get a spatula so I can get more of the syrup out. And if you're curious on what the print project I'm working on is, it's the defensive charts for the 2011 season of Fall Classic Baseball, which is my aforementioned tomorrow afternoon game. Although that might be a little bit later because my group is getting together tomorrow for our December game of Twilight Imperium. So that's going to be a bit of a beast. I'm going to try to get that set up right after I get done with tomorrow morning's video of Inside Pitch before I go to the game store to play Twilight Imperium. We'll give that a quick stir. Then we'll move that to the then we'll close this off. I'll put that out of the way and we'll let this simmer. We'll let that set for 45 minutes. We, however, are not going to sit idle because now we need a medium bowl in shot. While the syrup sets, we're going to work on the dough, and yes, the printing project is still going. So now we're going to start off with the milk powder, which I've got right here, and I'm getting ready to open that off camera. Okay. I have a feeling I'm going to need a couple of these pouches. Let's see, it looks like that's 1 cup, and I need, what did we say, 1.5 cups? Yes. So it looks like I need half of the next pouch, which is going to make me need a clip. Alright, easy does it here. Okay. Looks like we're right there, so I'll go ahead and close this off. And looks like there's a space to close this, so that's a relief. That can go up. Alright. There's our 1.5 cups of milk powder, aka powdered milk. Then we need a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. Alright, that can go in toward the dishes. I don't know why I'm putting flour in the fridge. Then a teaspoon each of sugar and baking powder. I've got my half a teaspoon because 2 halves makes a whole. So we'll get 1/2 teaspoon of sugar and the other half. Then the sugar can go back up. And the baking powder. 1/2 and 1. That can go toward the dishes as well. Right, that was the baking powder. Another 1/4 teaspoon of the cardamom again. The salt, well, and the salt, I should say. Just want a pinch of it, so we're going to go very light. Okay. We'll give that a quick stir, which I grabbed a wooden spoon down for. Okay. Now we're going to add the butter. I took the liberty of cubing up already. Should be at room temperature by now. So there's the butter. That can go in. Seems like it's a little bit warmer than room temperature, but I think it'll be fine. And then we're going to combine I'm going to combine this with my hands until the mixture resembles coarse cornmeal. That dust is just, hopefully it's not coming through too badly on the camera, but the dust is doing a lot of crazy things here. It's messing with my nose a little bit. Not terribly, but it is something to notice. All right, I think that's probably about as combined as it's going to get, so I'm going to wash up my hands. Sounds like my print project is done. I thought I noticed a weird blinky light or something at my desk, but it looks like it's all fine over there. So now we're going to start adding the milk in. We're going to start off at 7 tablespoons and start working everything together. So we're going to go 2, 4, 6, and 7. Whoop, that's 8. Oh well. I can't do first grade math today. But I guess we'll start off with 8 tablespoons of the milk, and we'll see how everything starts to work together. The goal is to work everything together until it's smooth. Which I think we're getting to here. Okay, everything looks good there. Let me see if I can scrape a little bit of this out. Actually, the milk can probably go back in the fridge now. So now what we want to do here, I'm going to get a plate out so I've got somewhere I can put these down. Because now we want to split this dough that we've got here. We want to split that into 14 equal portions and knead each one into balls. So let's see if I can scrape a little bit of this out. There we go. And I think the easiest thing to do here is going to be to grab my... I know I've got a scoop here that'll let me pull out portions that I can knead into balls. Let me see if I can find it in this accessory drawer. Rolling pin, not what I'm after. Cheese grater, also not what I'm after. Here it is. I was going to say, unless I snapped and threw it out in a rage or something, but I didn't. This is actually what I was looking for. So now we'll scoop a portion of this out. I'll drop it into my hand. Ooh, that's going to be a big ball. And this is not going to knead well at all. Let me get... I'm trying to remember what I had to do with this. It's actually a bit too sticky. Although I probably want it to be a little bit stickier. I think if I remember correctly, though, something that might make my life a bit easier as I'm starting to knead this together is I think this was a tip I had earlier from a previous recipe. Let me go grab another roll of paper towel first. Here. Sorry, I was opening the closet door there like crazy. Alright, so we've got that handled. What I'm going to do now, though, is I'm actually going to go ahead and flour my hands for this. Hopefully that'll help everything stick a little bit better. Let me see if I can scoop a portion of this out. And that really didn't do much of anything. I think it's a little bit too sticky. Let me see what I can do. Maybe I'm going to have to add a little bit more flour to this. Make it stick a little bit better. Or make it stick a little bit more. I really don't want this to be another failed recipe. I've only had one other recipe that I failed to finish on Mystical Munchies. I don't want this to be number 2. So let's add another tablespoon of flour. See if that helps this stick a little bit better. I don't know what I was expecting in this recipe, but I wasn't expecting it to be quite this. I wasn't expecting it to be quite this liquidy. Maybe adding a little bit more flour will make it stick a little bit better so I can actually knead it into the ball shape that I want. Well, let's find out. No, it's still too sticky. I can't really... Okay, I think there's going to have to be a plan B here because I'm not going to be able to knead these. I'm not going to be able to make the clean balls out of these. And I've ruined yet another batch of it, so I think we're going to go to plan B. What you may be asking is Plan B. Plan B is going to be involved in the second step of the recipe, but in order for that to make sense, we are going to need to move over to the stove. I was planning on turning the camera back on a little bit sooner, but I was setting up for this after my stream later this afternoon. If you're a regular on the channel, you probably recognize what this sight means. Stock pot with a chain of some kind you know I'm heating up oil. There we go. You know I've just finished heating up oil. We were heating peanut oil up to 275. You've probably also guessed what my plan B is going to be, where I'm going to take clumps of the dough and drop it directly in the oil. Actually, now let's see if in cruel irony, letting it sit out is going to let me knead it a little better. And actually, letting it sit out for a little bit is going to let me knead it. Because the plan was going to be to just drop it directly in the oil, but actually letting it sit out for a little bit is letting me knead it very nicely. So now we can do that instead. And it's not going to cover completely, but I'll just have to remember I'll just have to flip it. Which I've also got my oil handler my handler for oil anything. And I'm not going to get a whole heck of a lot of dough balls out of this because I ruined a couple at least, but yeah, even just letting it sit, letting the dough sit for a little bit while the oil is coming up to temperature actually seems like it's helped. Okay. Oh, again, trying not to splash myself on hot oil would be a wonderful thing. And we can probably get one more out of here. There we go. You're supposed to get 14 dough balls out of here, but because I ruined a few of them, looks like we're only going to get 7 out of here. So now we're going to let those fry for about 5 to 7 minutes. So I'm going to grab a timer here on one of my other timers because I've got my kitchen timer, my oven timer, or my microwave timer setting for the syrup. I'm going to use my app for the oil timer. I'm going to set that for about, I do have a 5-minute timer. We'll use an 8-minute timer and I'll just pay real close attention to it. Because I wasn't able to submerge some of the balls completely in the oil, I am going to turn them at about the halfway point. If some of them don't turn on me already, which some of them very well might. I also want to try to keep them. Well, some of them are starting to turn already, even when I just nudge them a little bit. So, given that we only have the one batch of dough balls that we have to worry about, we are going to let them, we are going to watch them boil, we are going to watch them fry up in real time. And we'll hear the microwave go off, meaning that the syrup is ready. I think at that point I'm going to take the lemon peel out. Okay, looks like some of these dough balls are starting to turn as they're lifting up out of the oil, or as they're starting to float toward the top of the oil. And once again, as we wait for the oil as we wait for these dough balls to fry in the oil, I will mention that my 1985 season replay and season ticket baseball is all set to start January 1st, as we will have at least 2 blocks on the day. We can probably get a third in, depending on how tightly I'm able to keep control of that day. I currently don't have anything else going on, actually on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. As of now, I don't have anything going on either of those days, and I don't expect that to change. So we'll see, but we should have at least 2 blocks in my 1985 replay. The season will start off with I believe it was the Cleveland Indians and the Detroit Tigers. It's going to be Bert Blyleven for the Twins and Jack Morris for the Tigers. So that's the matchup we'll be looking at for Block 1 in my 1985 season replay. And it looks like it's just about time to turn these balls to get what hasn't been able to cook up yet. Okay. And this one does not want to dip into. This one doesn't want to turn into the oil. Trying to do something like that, so I can get the uncooked portion in the oil, but it's not wanting to dip for me. It's not wanting to turn and stay. So that's rather annoying. At least that one we can manage to push under a little bit, whereas this really big one, we're having problems getting that one to stay under. So again, we're going to watch this cook in real time, and I'm going to use, I know the recipe says 5 to 7 minutes, but I've got an 8-minute timer set here, so we're going to use that as our timer. And actually what might work here is just to keep flipping that one. There we go. We'll get it worked out. We'll do that for the other ones as well, where they're not wanting to dip onto the side the way I want. I'm just watching both of my timers. Like I said, the syrup timer should go off here very soon. Probably in about 3 minutes, and then not too far behind that will be the timer for the dough balls. All right. And you guys know, normally on Mystical Munchies, we do the first batch of a fry, a bake, or whatever in real time, unless it's going to be an obscene amount of time. Otherwise, the subsequent batches I'll do off camera. So this is mostly just to see how everything works out, and actually, looks like time's going to run out a little bit on me, so I'm going to go change my battery out, but I will keep an eye on this. We will come back to this, because there's another step that's going to come before we take a long break. All right, the dough balls are fresh out of the oil, and as you can see, I've got the syrup and shot now that I've removed the lemon peels from it. So now we're going to take the dough balls, hopefully without burning my hands. We're going to put them in the oil, or not in the oil, in the syrup. Hopefully we can get all of them in the syrup, but it's sure not looking like it here. So we'll have to mix that around a little bit. We'll give that a little bit of a mix up here. But we are going to let that set for a minimum of 4 hours. And then the next time we come back to these dough balls, we'll be over at my desk for the taste test. I've got the dough balls here. They've been soaking in the syrup pretty much all afternoon. So let's give one of them a taste and see what I think. Not bad. They're not offensive to the point of like a garbage dump. I've only had one recipe in the history of Mystical Munchies that I've ever done a garbage dump with, but these dough balls aren't worthy of a garbage dump. They're not really much of anything to write home about, but they're, like I said, they're not really offensive either, and I think a lot of that's going to depend on how much syrup you're able to drench. I think that might also be part of the problem with this one. Let me see if I can get this down into the syrup a little bit more. Syrup was also pretty liquidy, so... But yeah, I'll probably end up finishing these off. That is another episode of Mystical Munchies in the books. Next week we'll be into a new cookbook, but I'll have more on that during Pinot with Phoenix on Tuesday, and I can't believe that's coming up already. Busy still coming up on the channel. I'm going to do at least one product unboxing tonight. I've got a couple new games that just came into the collection today, so we're going to crack at least one of them yet tonight. I've got to do a little bit of cleanup first. Then tomorrow is a baseball day on the channel. Tomorrow morning we're going to step into a 2011 matchup in inside pitch baseball, as the New York Yankees will be in Baltimore to take on the Orioles. Then in the afternoon we're going to debut Fall Classic Baseball by ASG Games with a National League matchup from 2011. As the Milwaukee Brewers will be visiting the San Diego Padres. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.